This is a story I kind of went back and forth on whether or not to cover because I feel like it's something we've talked about extensively on this channel and laughed at it. And we should laugh at it. We should laugh at situations where most people look at the situation and you say, well, this is going to be a colossal failure. Yet there are people out there that try to say it's not going to be. We're obviously talking about Concord today, and there's been some new information that's out there. Now, a lot of people have already talked about this, how it fits into the grand scheme of things, and if it was just that, I would have left it alone. I felt like most people have already said what needs to be said about the alleged budget of this game and how it's an absolute catastrophe for Sony and really raises a lot of questions about the leadership that Herman Hol is going to provide for the company. However, there's a facet of this story that just really resonates with me, and it really comes down to vindication. Wasn't there a Dashboard Confessional song that talked about vindication? I dated a girl in high school who really liked them. Their main song was that stupid, I'm cuddling close to blankets and sheets. Like he's like drinking beer and stuff because he's sad that a girl left him. It's like, bro, you're like 40 when you made this song. Like, you'll be okay. There's no reason to cuddle close to blankets and sheets. But the vindication is something that I just find fascinating. So let's first talk about the main aspect of what's happening with Concord, and that, of course, is the alleged budget of this game. We have been told that the game was like 200 million, 250 million to make, but no, it seems like it was a hell of a lot more to make. When you compare it to the cost of something like, oh, I don't know, the Art of N64 Wrestling Games book that's available now on CastlemaniaGames.com or on Amazon. Make sure you pick up your copy today. Links in the description box. This just seems like a monumental waste of money when it comes to game creation, because allegedly this game was upwards of $400 million to create, according to Colin Moriarty, who spoke with developers of the game that decided to remain anonymous because obviously they don't want this information getting out there. The head of the studio that made Concord has already left. So if you had any sort of hopes or dreams of this game coming back, they should be thwarted immediately. This is not only the biggest disaster in video game history, it's the biggest disaster as far as financials are concerned and in the entire entertainment industry. There's never been a movie that cost $400 million to make that was only in studios for 2 weeks and then was completely pulled. No physical version ever released. Like there's ways to make up some of that money if it's a movie, if it's a TV show, if it's anything really. But a video game is very different. A video game is a completely different beast in the fact that if you're not selling the game and people are not able to play the game, well, you're never going to recoup any of that money. The studio will probably be dissolved after this because I can't imagine anyone really having much faith in Sony in them creating a new project. I'm sure some people will find work within Sony, and some people that are talented at the studio, if there are any people there, will be able to find jobs at other companies. But Concord is a huge mark on the video game industry, and I don't think many people really realize just how big of an issue this is if the game did indeed cost $400 million. And I always have to circle back to the reason why Concord got the big push that it got, and that is because of Herman Hol. Herman Hol said that this game was the future of PlayStation. This is why they ended up buying the studio behind Concord in order to make them an in-house game. So many people within Sony thought that this game was the future of PlayStation. When you actually showed off the game for the first time beyond just a roast beef sandwich, gamers rejected this game. Did the pronoun thing have something to do with it? You know, maybe. But at the end of the day, the characters themselves, the story that they were trying to create within these characters was just not interesting. It just wasn't. The characters themselves were not interesting characters. The world itself and the lore they tried to build within it was just not interesting for most people. So then it sort of relies on gameplay. And if the gameplay is something that you've seen before and doesn't really reinvent the wheel or anything like that, what the hell cost $400 million with this game? Is this money laundering? Like somebody needs to investigate this, because there's no way that this game should have cost $400 million. Now, yes, this game was in development for a very long time, and maybe that's why this game wasn't a free-to-play game and instead was being charged at $40, because they had to make up some sort of money. But how did nobody see this coming within Sony? If gamers, the average person, the average Joe who watches video game trailers or maybe makes videos about video games, is able to clearly identify that this is something that the market isn't really interested in, how was nobody there able to sort of realize that? Now, you could say that it had something to do with the fact that probably when this game was first being developed, this was still a fresh concept, the 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, whatever it may be, hero shooter mechanics. And maybe there is some truth to that, but there's a bigger problem at play here. There's a bigger problem that I have spoken out against, that I have said is indeed an issue. Yet, if you say something like this on social media, you're a grifter. It's not a real thing. This doesn't actually exist. There's no such thing as this. And here's where the vindication comes into play, folks. You were wondering when I was going to get to that. So Colin Moriarty, in his tweet about this, had actually talked about something called a dev culture of toxic positivity. And you can look at the tweet that we have here. This is a senior reporter at Kotaku, okay? And once again, what does RGT always say? If somebody does something or says something that is actually good, even if I don't like where they work or who they are, I will always give them credit. And in this case, with Mr. Ethan Gotch, I will give him credit for this, because Ethan says, I can corroborate the part about toxic positivity. Some sources I've spoken with blamed a head in the sand mentality carried over from the studio's Bungie roots, a sense that the game would come together because the team was too good to fail. I'll have more next week. And you know what? I will actually read that article over on Kotaku, because toxic positivity is something that I have preached before on this channel. And I always say that, you know, the negative Nancy's, the people that hate everything, are less of a risk than the toxic positivity people are. Because toxic positivity, as you could clearly see here, just cost Sony $400 million. Because nobody wanted to say, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe this isn't a good game. Maybe this isn't something that we should be putting out there and having such a big budget of. And I sincerely wonder, is it because, and here's where we go down a rabbit hole, is it because you have all these fucking people out there that glaze up every single major game? They're the journalists, they're the influencers, the people who work with the main websites, the same group of 25 to 40 people that you see at every event that always get the press kits, that always get this, that, or the other, that glaze every single big budget game as the next great thing. And then when the game fails, where are they? They're not there. They've moved on to the next thing. These aren't critics. These are marketers. These are people to market the game. They get flown to these events. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them are like this. And maybe there is that sort of feeling of excitement because you get to see something first. But how is it that nobody that really seems to go to these events, that talks about it openly, ever seems to be critical of the games? If that was the case, we would be in the golden age of gaming, not in the middle of a gaming crash where layoffs are a common occurrence. Over 12,000 people within the video game industry have been laid off. Big AAA games are failing. Quadruple A games are failing. Sales are down for many major games. People aren't buying stuff, and that's why these companies are trying to figure out what's the next direction to go into. But we're not in a gaming crash. But these toxic positive people, that's not real feedback. That's not looking at something and giving honest advice about it. It's just a yes man mentality. And I get it. People don't like to hear that maybe something sucks. But if you're surrounded by a bunch of people who all say the same thing, oh, this game is great, this game's going to be the next big thing, and nobody's there to question it, you have to look internally and see who you've surrounded yourself with. Unless you're cool with losing $400 million because you've cultivated a toxic positive thing where you have to like everything. Not everything is for everyone. I get that. There are games that people love that I don't love. There are games that I love that people don't love. And that's okay. That's not indicative of you being a bad person because you say, hey, you know, maybe this isn't the move. Maybe this isn't the right thing to do. But we've created within the video game and really the entertainment landscape where if you say something negative about something, you're automatically a grifter. You're automatically this. You're automatically that. Oh, you just hate it because of this, that, or the other. Instead of just being like, no, I don't like it because it sucks. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. It doesn't appeal to me. But toxic positivity, baby. That's the way of the future. Don't hurt anyone's feelings. We got to be positive about it. Ridiculous. And now it cost you $400 million, Sony. So you going to learn from that? Are people going to learn from that? Are developers going to learn from that? Are journalists, the people who go to these press events and glizzy up these fucking games, are they going to learn from that? Or are we going to have more games do this? And more people are going to lose their jobs? Because really, if you think about it, the reason that the people at Concord will probably lose their jobs is because of toxic positivity. Let that marinate for a little while, folks. Those are just my opinions on the subject, though. Maybe you feel differently. And if you do, that's fine, man. I'm not going to, it is what it is. This is just my viewpoint of the situation. But I think the proof is in the pudding. And we've got proof. And we got pudding. None of that Jell-O pudding, though. Stay away from me, Bill Cosby, you freak. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of the situation in the comments section down below. And as always, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to check out the book. Sales have been really good so far. I would like to keep that going as, well, once I make, I will stop shilling the book once I make my money back. We've got a ways to go, so let's keep it going. Links are in the description box down below. If you're wondering where I make the most money, I make it through Castlemania. The t-shirt bundle is the best option if you're trying to just support, but I appreciate sales on everything. Just letting you guys know. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.